Derek, are you all set with your lines, the ones that you used in practice today, or are you still?
Yeah, no, it's going to be our lineup tomorrow. We're going to have Suter and Zadina out, the 12 that rep today. Tough decision, went back and forth. We expect both those guys to see some time sooner than later and kind of keep that competition going.
That's what you were hoping for. It's tough decisions.
Yes, we're hoping for tough decisions, but it's always been it's coaching. When they do come, they were tough, and we literally went back and forth quite a bit as a staff this week on where this lineup would be on Friday.
What ultimately did you need to see more of with Philip Sedina?
Uh, it's not more. I think there's some things in his game, manages his game a little more. You know, he's an offensive guy that judges himself on offense, and obviously we would love him producing offense, but just managing his game. There's some risk and there's some turnovers in his game. All great players and skilled guys are going to have those natural turnovers, but I think just limiting them. But again, I don't know if it's specific. There was times throughout the week we had him in. I just think it came through a decision on where our lineup's going to be, and the luxury we had, which is probably different than they've experienced in the past here, is we could have went many different directions. I think Suter would be in that same boat. Arguably, his best game was his last showing for us in Toronto. So those were really tough decisions. A lot went into it, but that's what we're going to be on Friday, and I see it changing a little bit, especially early on in the season.
So those two guys pretty much basically just got beaten out, you think, more or less, for spots?
They got beat.
More or less?
They got beaten out for Friday night. And again, we could blend this over again, and it may have even looked different. And again, that's how close it was on our decisions on who's playing Friday.
Derek, a question from Montreal. First of all, I got to ask, who was your favorite Montreal Expo?
I loved them all back in the day. Probably Tim Raines, the switch hitting leadoff hitter, steal bases, so just growing up, where the passion for the Expos I had growing up, the small town, Brazier Falls, New York. We're probably about an hour, 15 minutes, over the border, through traffic into Montreal, right to the Big O. But we had 4 people in our town. They had season tickets, and just a small town. They would rotate them around. People would go. I went all the time as a young kid, and the Big O and that AstroTurf, you'd walk in and it looked bigger. And they had you're smiling, but they had the double scoop. Remember the double scoop ice creams? I might be outdating myself on that thing.
No.
I'm like, you get me there, 2 double scoops, and let's watch some Expo baseball. So that was had a big passion for them.
I had a more serious question now, but you're 24 hours away from coaching your first NHL game as a head coach. What goes through your mind when you think back of your first game, going back to being an assistant in Division III?
Yeah, it's just been quite a journey. I've had that question from our local media a lot here. I really haven't had that wow moment. I'm so entrenched in getting our process going, being ready for tomorrow night. I think it's a little extra special that it's Montreal. Even a cup number 2 in Tampa, it's just different. It's special when it's an original 6 team, and just playing Montreal in the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, I remember going to a game when they played Calgary as a kid way back in the day. It's just something about Montreal. Even John Cooper, when we used to talk my first time going to Montreal, like John Cooper would pick and choose when he'd go on morning skates. He had a lot going on. He's like, he would never miss a morning skate in Montreal. It's just something about it also being the Canadiens and just being a hockey fan. It's 2 original 6 teams. It's pretty neat, but again, I really haven't had that moment. I want us to play well, to look like we've translated some things from a good camp into our first game.
You've talked about how the coaching staff has been evaluating. What's it been like for you? I mean, ultimately being the guy who makes the final decision.
Yeah, well, that's part of being the head coach, and that's something I haven't experienced the last 4 years. Again, I'm very appreciative now that I had those 7 years as a head coach in junior, in the ECHL and the American Hockey League. That's all part of it. The buck ultimately ends on you, and It's all part of it. Try to communicate the best I could to anyone that's not going to be in the lineup on Friday, what we would want from them going forward. It's all you can really do right now.
How have you tried to kind of handle that, especially with a guy like Zadina, who kind of, could have used the fresh start and that you gave? Like, how did you kind of handle communicating all that?
Yeah, I tried communicating. He was good. He basically repeated the 3-4 things I had asked of him, and he's handled it well. He's been a good teammate, and I know it's a little thing, but on Monday he wasn't in our top 12, and he ate some pucks in practice. I think that's him telling the coaching staff and telling his teammates that I'll be a good teammate and I'll watch game one, but I'm not going to accept it, and that's what you want from competitors.
One of those, I think, went off his foot, and he ended up leaving practice early.
He did.
Fully available now?
Yeah, he's fully available. I think it was a stinger. It hurt him, but I think it was a little caution. He had had an injury in that same spot previously, so he'd missed practice up.
You've been talking about the Stanley Cup final against Montreal, but over the past season, you saw a lot of Ben Chara. What do you think Ben will be adding to that group?
That's a great question on Ben. Ben was an exciting signing for us in that he brings some things that we're trying to accomplish as a team. He cares about keeping the puck out of the net. He's hard. He draws people in the fight every practice. He's made it uncomfortable for some of our guys in practice with how hard he plays. One thing about Benny, played him in the Stanley Cup Finals this year, also played him in the playoffs last year, and you appreciate him as a player. He's probably got way better feet than I had anticipated, and his stick's even better than I anticipated. So I think for him, he needs to lead us in the fight on things we're trying to do. We're trying to defend better. We're trying to make some things in our game a little more important, some things he takes pride in. So that's what we'll be asking of Benny.
David Perron is still producing at a really high level in terms of numbers, but is he the type of teacher you also want to add to your group?
Who was that? What was the first question?
David Perron.
Awesome. Yeah, 100%. And again, another signing by Steve. I think where our power play was statistically last year, we need a boost from David on that. But what he brings, he's seen winning. He's won a Stanley Cup recently. I think he went through what some of our young guys are going through early in their career, that he went through in his career, managing his game better, being more responsible, being a little more committed to less risking game, a little more better in his team game. So he's already done that transformation in his career, and he sees it, and I think he's been a really good example. So he's been aces in camp so far, high energy, great human being. Now it's real hockey. Hopefully it translates in his first game tomorrow.
Also from Montreal, also a fan of the double scoop.
Who's not?
There wasn't much to be a fan of the baseball going on there, but assuming you watched the Canadiens play last night, assuming you did, safe assumption, what do you see in their game that you
Some offensive confidence, the rush. I think you feed off some analytics whenever you can, and since Marty took over, they are a really good rush team. Statistically, a good rush team. They get offense off the rush. They produce off the rush. And if you're going to give them the rush, it's going to be a long night. And I think it's a perfect challenge for us where we're trying to improve some things in our game is going to be an exact result of hopeful of giving our chefs a chance for success against Montreal. If we're going to feed them easy offense off the rush, it's going to be a long night. They have many players on that team very comfortable on the rush that make plays. So it's one thing I saw them high compete. We had a little longer to prepare for our first game, so you do probably watch Montreal a little bit more. And every man to a coach, or special team coaches, they're obviously going to be way better than people think. I mean, go right through that lineup. It's pretty. There's some special players sprinkled in there. Young, I get it, but that's a good team, high energy. I was not surprised with the result last night.
You've had a full plate yourself, but have you had a chance to follow kind of what Martin Stanley has been doing there and what his approach to coaching?
Yeah, well, obviously he's a true Tampa legend. So he was around a little bit when we were there. Him and Steve are obviously still really good friends. He'd come back for the puck drop. He would. We had him around the room a lot, but he's a legend in Tampa Bay. And even talking with Steve, when he became the coach, Steve's like, he'll figure it out because he's so competitive. And you can just see that drive. And I've liked even listening to him with some of his approach, talking about offense, talking about thinking the game through. I mean, some of those guys, I mean, it's at a different level. I have Alex Tanguay here. He just sees things differently than I do, playing in the league so long, his offense. And obviously Marty is, I mean, another level with that. So, yeah, I've been a fan. I've liked what I've seen. Yes, I have watched them a little bit, obviously a little invested, just what he was to us in Tampa and watch him take over in Montreal.
Can you appreciate this sort of jump he made? Because I cannot think of two more opposite paths to this.
Yeah.
Yours and his. Can you sort of appreciate what the transition could have been for?
Well, you appreciate what he did as a player. I mean, that's legend. I mean, a free agent playing at Vermont to what he did as a player. But I think I think what Steven was talking about his drive. Like, I think tell him he's not going to be successful. That's what people did to his career, and I think he'll take the same approach with his coaching. Again, I've talked about it in the past. I've been a career coach. My hockey ended after college, literally 22 years old. And these guys that have played for so long, I think there's a huge value. I mean, you can say what you want about not having coaching experience. He's going to tap into his experience as not only a player, one of the Hall of Fame player. So I'm not surprised at what he's doing with the transition at all because of who he is. Montreal people came and ran the show. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.